Cinema, it's Joshua E. Faulkner, and today we're going to be talking about the Star Wars spin-off movies, ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite. Let me know down in the comments below how you would rank these films yourself, all 6 of them from the Star Wars Clone Wars animated to the older Star Wars holiday specials and more. So, starting in last place, we have Star Wars The Holiday Special, which unfortunately is just lackluster with every little thing you can ask for. This tension is so low with all the Imperial invasions that you're taking over the Chewbacca's family's house, but their threats are very weak and there's no strength within the protagonist we have there with the Wookiees there. And maybe the female Wookiees aren't so strong, and of course the kid isn't. But overall, we have to wait the whole movie going through these random little tangent and mini episodes of little mini movies they're watching, or the chess show doing dancing is just really awkward, and we're all waiting for Han and the rest of the crew to show up and for Chewbacca to save his family. And there's some moments that were so cringe they were funny, and it just doesn't end up well. And coming in at number 5, we have Ewoks: The Battle for Endor, one that's honestly not too bad for what it's going for. It's a sequel to Caravan of Courage, which pulls off something that's a little bit different for Star Wars, going a little bit more juvenile, but in this retrospect, it's also one of the darker Star Wars films, especially of the spin-off, just showing the death of certain family members or the Ewoks and how they're getting past that, because by the end you realize those kids were actually dead, or just going about all that was very interesting. And the Battle for Endor itself, well, it does have cheaper technology and use of availability resources. Ultimately, it was still alright with its story. And coming in at number 4, we have Star Wars The Clone Wars animated movie. Now, I'm a little bit more of a sucker for a movie versus shows, but this one is still pretty good for its own means. It has a decent arc throughout the whole thing, maybe containing multiple episodes within the movie itself, introducing us to the Clone Wars show, but ultimately, it's still alright with the story about Ahsoka becoming Anakin's Padawan, and just the way they're training her, and then the introduction to Rada the Hutt, Jabba's son, and the Emperor's plan to trick the Jedi, get Count Dooku with the head of the thing by stealing Rada and blaming it on the Jedi. But ultimately, in the end, it ends as you expect, but it's still sufficient for its needs of what it's doing. And coming in at number 3, we have Caravan and Courage, one that was rather surprising. While it isn't one of the greatest Star Wars films by any means, it still has its substance that delivers on the juvenile theme, and having these 2 kids and then meeting up with the Ewoks and dealing with the culture of how the language and their communication works, but also dealing with the Garak and the robbery of the parents from them, and they have to go rescue their parents, and then meeting the whimsies along the way, which are just these lights that are becoming interesting just in the way it explores the Star Wars universe. And while it doesn't include real animals from the real world, that sort of takes you out of the Star Wars-esque type of universe, ultimately it still provides something that's substantial for the story it's providing. And that leaves at number 2, Solo: A Star Wars Story, one that leaves Alden as a younger version of Solo, and then we get a young Calrissian that's just as interesting, and I don't mind their performances. It just creates a different flavor for Han Solo, because we haven't seen him that young before, so he's bound to act just a slightly different way. And unfortunately, the backlash on Star Wars The Last Jedi made it underperform in the box office, but ultimately the hate for it is honestly just overdone. And while it isn't one of the greatest Star Wars adventures out there, it does provide a different sort of heist movie that is sufficient and lovable for what it's going out for, and creating all of these different characters and a couple different plot twists near the end. But that leaves at number 1, Star Wars Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. This one, it was enjoyable just for the meat and bones of no one technically ever asked for it, but all within one line of the prologue of Star Wars: A New Hope. It's talking about the soldiers that died, getting the message of the Death Star plans, and it does deliver on a sufficient means creating compelling characters that we may not grow to love to the extent we do with the ones that get a whole trilogy, but still are providing enough meat for us to digest and to really enjoy the characters, and also the story provided just going through different heights, meeting different cameos, and just having a fun time along the way with an epic Darth Vader hallway scene at the end. Now, so that's just my ranking of all of the Star Wars spin-off movies from my least favorite to my favorite. Be sure to check out the Star Wars ranking of the main theatrical releases if you haven't.